Hi everybody, I'm Bree the Plant Lady, coming to you from the gardens of the Southeast, where we have the grain trial in full swing. We are getting ready to do our first run through for our grain to oven experience that is coming up in just like a week from now. I am so excited about it. And it's so incredibly beautiful that I want to give you all close-up views of all the different varieties of grains and what they look like now that they are completely mature. They are ready to be harvested. They are ready to be threshed, winnowed, ground, and then made into pizza dough. So let's hop on over and go grain by grain so that you can see why I am the crazy grain lady. So first, I want to show you our mode of transportation and my driver,
Hey.
the handsome David. And we have some buckets because as we walk around, we're going to harvest from each of the different varieties. There's 12 different varieties growing that include wheat, rye, oats, and barley. And, well, it's impossible to pick a favorite. So it's worth noting that the corn is enormous. It's probably taller than I am. And that bright green against the beautiful dried grains, I think is really beautiful. And actually, I should let you all know, we have summer grain experiments going. So there's a couple varieties of millet, there's sesame, there's a whole field of sunflowers planted. So not only are these field to oven classes going to be great right now, we're going to do them again in the fall. So the first variety that we have here is wheat from southern states. And this is a really nice variety. You can see how big the kernels are. You see it breaks off really quite easily. It's super dry, so it just sort of crumbles in your hand. This has large awns. That's the whisker-like mechanism. And the seed itself is encapsulated here right along the stem. So we'll be just walking around, essentially pulling these out. There's actually a raw seed. Didn't even have to thresh and winnow to get seed out of this hole. So this is definitely going to be an ideal variety for harvesting and then ultimately grinding it into flour to make that pizza dough. Can't wait to show everybody the thresher that they built.
Oh, it's cool.
So you can see the process is pretty simple. You're just gonna walk around and literally break the flower heads right off the stem. Put them in the bucket. And then at the end of this process, everybody's actually gonna be transported in these big, beautiful wagons. It's really cool. But then they have an air-conditioned tent where the rest of the process will take place. So and with beer and wine included. This is definitely the most luxurious field time that I could ever possibly contrive.
I'm sure people that grew up on the farm won't think of it like that. But, yeah, it'll be good.
Well, for all of us like you and me who didn't grow up on farms, but we're fascinated with where our food comes from, this is one of those things that it's meant to raise your awareness and give you a better understanding of the resources that we all have take for granted because we are so far removed from our food sources. So I think it's going to be a little bit of education, but a whole lot more about just having an authentic experience and a really, really delicious pizza.
I think it's going to be a good time.
All right, the next grain is triticale from White Hat. And you can see this is equally elegant. Triticale is actually a hybrid between barley and wheat. And the flowers are quite large. And again, it has awns. And this is really good stem strength. You see how they haven't broken off really. And boy, it's amazing when you use mechanization how much you can grow. I have never planted with a tractor before, so you'll have to pardon my outrageous excitement over agriculture, because comparing from my home garden to here, it's like the productivity is just so remarkable. I'm definitely excited to taste this and see what this flour tastes like. It's extremely nutritional. So, and we're actually gonna do some experiments where we mix all the different grains together and make a multi-grain flour and see how that tastes. The next variety is from one of my favorite suppliers, Hancock Seeds, and this is Wren's Abruzzi rye. Oh, look at how beautiful it is. It's significantly taller. And look at the individual clumps. Like, you could see why I talk about these grains, these winter active grains, as being a great option to grow as an ornamental grass, because they really have the same presence as ornamental grasses, except they grow during the off season when most of the grasses we typically include in our landscapes are dormant. Remember, these are all fall planted and they grow all winter. They are ripe now, they get harvested, and they disappear. They're annuals. I have never grown this variety before, but I can definitely tell you I will be growing it next year in the ground, because it wasn't a great option for in containers. But I will definitely be including this in my in-ground plantings because it just has such an impressive stature. So we have another variety from Hancock. This is just grain rye. And similarly to the Abruzzi, it's tall, it's upright, it's really elegant. These seed heads are a little bit smaller. And again, traditionally, these ryes are grown actually for animal feed. This is a little more difficult to pop out. Like, you saw how easy that wheat was to get out of the chaff. There is the seed itself, that little thing there. So I'm sure with a little bit of threshing, it won't be a problem at all. Yeah, it is. They are coming right apart. It's really nice and dry. Now here's an oat variety, Cocker 227 from Hancock. I've grown this for many years, and it's interesting to see this lacks stem strength. You see a lot of it has kind of lodged over. Lodging is basically when the stalks break near the base and then they bend over. But you'll also notice here, birds love oats. Like, it's definitely birds' favorite of all the grains to eat. So a lot of this has actually been stripped clean of seeds, and that is definitely from birds. And I would actually suspect that birds are what are causing the stalks to break. We're like, I don't know, less than an hour to the coast. So, and we saw blue herons and stuff. So I bet large birds are coming in and taking advantage of this crop, which to me is a reason to grow it. Why not grow your own bird seed? Then you don't have to buy it, and the planting that you're doing is benefiting the ecosystem in which you live. Now here is a gorgeous variety of barley from White Hat Violetta, and look how short it is. You know, it's only like at most 1.5 feet, 15 inches. And look at this absolutely exquisite seed head and dark awns. This is where beer starts. This is future beer. We don't have the plan to make beer from this, I don't think, though that would be super cool. We are, however, going to thresh and grind it and put it into that multi-grain flour that I think will be a really interesting experiment. I've never had this much grain to play with before, so right now my mind is just swirling with all the options. So here's the barley that I've been growing from Hancock. And you can see it's also really short. It's funny, in my garden it's much, much taller, but I also have a lot more organic matter. You can see here, this is kind of a funny sort of sandy clay, you know, not bad field soil, but definitely different from my garden soil. And yeah, this looks very much like what my barley looks like. It's, you know, ripe and ready. It comes apart really easily, you know, just twirling it in your hands. And then this is where the threshing will happen, because this has a hull. You need to take that hull off so that it's just the raw seed. Otherwise, it's a lot of fiber for your body to digest. Next we have Pembroke wheat from Hancock Seed, and it's beautiful. Oh my. I know I sound like a broken record. I can't help it. I think they're all beautiful. But this one, you can see really wide stretching awns. It definitely falls apart right away. Really easy to come out of that hole. So, you know, these are all important things to be taking into consideration when growing grains at home, because, yeah, you aren't probably going to be using a tractor or a combine, and you want to be able to access the seeds in the most practical way, and that's going to mean that some varieties aren't the right choice for you to grow. Clearly, this Pembroke wheat is a very practical one that I will definitely be growing next year. Another variety of wheat, USG 3536 from White Hat. White Hat is a seed distributor in eastern North Carolina. And wow, look at how big and beautiful those seed heads are. Wow. Oh my gosh. I hope that people will enjoy just, you know, seeing the differences in the varieties as much as I do. I just think it's so remarkable. Genetics in action. And, you know, whether you eat grains or the animals that you eat, you're never really getting around the grain dynamic. Grains feed the world, period. And as human beings, we have a lot to be grateful for as a result of these cultivated Poaceae plants. Now our final variety, SY, that's Syngenta 747 wheat from White Hat, is the only awnless variety. And what's really interesting, and I suspected that this would be the case, the birds have devoured it. There's hardly any seed heads left. Look, they've all been eaten. And that's because the awns are what actually protect the seed from critters eating it all. So notice how this side doesn't have much growing. This is a different variety with awns. And see how they've been a little bit damaged, but nowhere near. Most of these seed heads still have wheat seed to harvest. In contrast, you look here at the awnless varieties, and it's a much, much lower yield, not because it didn't produce, but because we allowed it to dry and the birds found it first. Well, I'm really excited about these evaluations and just seeing these plants grow in the field like this. It's significantly different than having a couple of pots or, you know, one little area of my garden devoted. And I hope you'll be inspired by this as well. And maybe if you have the opportunity to come and attend one of our grain to oven sessions, the link is in the description in the bio. And well, I hope that you will tune in to my next installment in this series that we will make also while we're here, showing the behind the scenes of getting it harvested, threshed, winnowed, ground, and then, you know, getting it into the wood-fired oven so that we can all have a delicious dinner. Well, as always, thanks so much for watching, everybody. I hope that you will consider gardening with grains.